Well, good evening and welcome to News Sources Ladies' Night edition on a day that we are in fact celebrating women. I am Julie Masiga.
Absolutely, it is an important day indeed where we focus on the health and rights of women. And speaking of health, it is a continuing crisis in the country. I'm Sharon Momanyi. Let's take a look at the highlights tonight.
There is a lot of goodwill, and the union have declared that their full commitment to the process.
Msimamo ubadiliki na huwezi kubadilishwa na munya hapa. Msimamo ni wa serikali mbili.
Once we surrender some parts of Kenya to criminals, what you know, what are we saying?
Now, the impasse between doctors and the government continues as the government insists it is not ready to sign the freshly negotiated CBA until 60 days are over. Government has also withdrawn its 600 million risk allowance offer while it initiates the process to sack the medics. The Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union were today held up in a meeting at their headquarters at KMA to discuss the new turn of events regarding the doctor strike.
There is a lot of goodwill, and the union have declared their full commitment to the process. And as we have clarified, that the major hurdles which have been discussed back and forth, the CBA, the recognition agreements, they are fully agreed on by both parties and ready for a signature. And it's just a few clauses within that return to work formula that will get the doctors back to work.
We were informed by the union today that as far as monetary offers and so on are concerned, they arrived at agreement. So that is not what is pending. What is pending is other issues that are germane to a return to work agreement. You know, return to work agreements are technical instruments that allow people to go back to work in an orderly fashion. And that is really what is being finalized. And as soon as that is finalized, there will be no further hurdle to preventing the doctors from going back to work.
Right, welcome to the show. And before we start introducing my guest, right on my right-hand side, Wangari Mwikia, MD of Global Expertise Consulting, and friend to the show as well as Wangari Betty Waitherero, political communicator and researcher, and of course my lovely co-host Sharon Momani. And speaking about the doctor strike, it seems we're right back at ground zero. We're 95 days into it now. I believe the doctors had agreed and the government had agreed on everything, and now the sticky bit is the return to work formula where they are now refusing to sign the agreement, Wangari. So is there any good faith on the part of the doctors?
I mean, from what I've heard is that they've agreed on everything. The return to work formula, the sticking point is when the document is going to be signed. Mm-hmm. So if I were a doctor, my experience of having this whole issue come up from the 2013, having agreed to go to back to work after an agreement has been signed, and then only for the agreement not to be adhered to, I would also have those misgivings. If you're going to return to work, I would like to see, since we've been here all this time and we both agreed, sign the document, we go back to work. And so I think, I don't think it's a lack of good faith, but I think it's, I don't blame them for not signing because they've been shown bad faith before, and I think it's up to the Ministry of Health and the national government to show good faith and to sign the document going forward, if it has been agreed on.
Yes, indeed. And Betty, we have it on good authority that they had agreed on everything, that even agreed to get the 40% rise instead of the between 150 and 180%. And then at the last minute, the government kind of says, we don't think so. Where is this going to end? Are we seeing a solution before August 8th?
No, not at the rate that they're going, especially with the sort of threats that are being made. You can see that this is not a goodwill situation on the part of the government. As Wangari has said, you've simply not signed a document, and you cannot expect, after weeks and months of negotiation, you cannot expect the party that you're negotiating with to stop their strike without signing this document. But more importantly, you've asked about going into the election with the doctors on strike. It looks like it's going to be a likely possibility. You have people making threats about bringing in doctors from other countries. It doesn't even make sense for you to think that you can recruit and attract people to Kenya when Kenyans don't want to work for you. You know, so if you won't sign with the Kenyan doctors, how will you convince Cubans that you will sign, or Tanzanians.
Or that you're going to treat them well.
Or that you're going to even pay them well, or treat them professionally. I think that, yeah, they seem ready to go into an election with not just the doctors on strike, but again, the nurses are going on strike, the lecturers have been on strike, and these are sticking points for the current regime. They need to sort this out.
Right, but just to be the devil's advocate, Sharon, do you think the doctors are being unreasonable? Do you think that now is the point to say, we tried, we failed, Kenyans are suffering, dying, let's go back to work, perhaps?
I think that would be a good thing. No doubt about that. But this entire thing has taken a completely different trajectory right now, and the kind of sentiments and chatter we are getting from our leaders concerning this issue has become really distasteful. Like you rightly said, the doctors had actually ceded some ground and were ready to, take a lower, offer on their increment of salary. Right. But what would be important also to find out is, we are hearing a lot of things left, right, and center, that we are going to take the doctors on, those ones who, because they've been away from duty, put them on disciplinary action. We are going to get other doctors. But, there are legal procedures that are involved in all these things. Does it mean now that it's government, and because they have been ruffled the wrong way, that now we're just going to make decisions and completely, make without the legal procedures that are involved in all this?
Yes, and we also heard from a doctor today that between 8,000, I believe, and 10,000 people die daily, even without a doctor strike. We haven't heard the numbers that have happened during this period, but I had a discussion with some colleagues who were saying that they never even go to public hospitals to see public doctors. They see those public doctors in their private clinics. So does Uhuru Kenyatta have a point when he's saying you come to work for 2 hours and then you rush to your private clinic, or is that just some kind of twisted negotiating tool?
It's the reality of the situation. No one has disagreed that the doctor's situation is deplorable. It's deplorable. We have agreed on that. The methodology which they're using to get the better conditions may not be the best, and the strike has caused more strife than it would, than could have been seen. But by the same token, if you have a skill and you have an ability to raise money from that skill, and you're not getting remunerated or compensated in a fashion that would enable you to live in a decent life, I think it's only natural that someone would try and supplement their income while doing doing two jobs at the same time, working for the public sector, then running a private clinic on the side. So I think it's a rational way for a human being to act. But the Constitution does say public officers should not be running private practice on the side. But it's the reality of the world,
Yeah, it happens around the globe. So maybe we should just throw out the whole notion of public health care, just have our private system, have NHIF funding us, and then all our doctors can go there. Or what? I'm not understanding.
Also, even when they say that, these doctors, then they can just go and start their own private practice. I mean, I think I'm not wrong to believe that most of the doctors we have in the public hospitals, the ones who have not specialized, because you have to specialize to go and get into private practice, and it takes years and years of experience to do that. So it would be even unfair, to do that. And I think there also is a provision that the Ministry of Health, which I know it has been playing ping pong with this role, about offering, further and, a higher education for the doctors, which is something it also, I believe, is supposed to be doing.
But beyond the technical problems around the healthcare system and the obvious flaws in the system and what we need to do better, it's also becoming a political issue, Betty, isn't it?
Yes, it has. In fact, healthcare is always a political issue. It's a sticking point where basically you have to insist that the government lives up to its obligations and provide amenities for the population. So it automatically is a political issue. How it is being dealt with by the politicians is the problem. That is why we are in the situation we're in right now.
Right. All right. Okay. Let's fine-tune this discussion a little bit more. And in a quick rejoinder, Munya, speaking to KTN's Zubeda Kome, reiterated that the government is not negotiating with the doctors anymore. He claims that doctors they're more interested in money than the state of public health sector in the country.
Msimamo ubandiliki na uwezi kubandilishwa na Munya hapa. Msimamo ni wa serikali mbili ziliketi jana zikakubaliana. Gavana Munya hako hapa tu kusema ile msimamo, na hiyo msimamo haijabadilika na haiwezi kubadilishwa na mimi. Hatuna mazungumzo yanaendelea, sisi hatuhusiki. Kwa hivyo kama kuna mazungumzo yanaendelea, hiyo ni informal talks ambazo zinaendelea. Kauli ilikatwa jana na tukamalizana hiyo mambo.
All right, so the county governments won't talk, the national government won't talk, you know. And what is your take on this? Because I'm looking at this in two ways. The Council of Governors have been asking for more funds, you know, to go down to the roots so that they're able to execute the mandates, you know, more comfortably. The doctors are asking for the exact same thing. So what is is it not a conflict of you know, of interest?
Of interest in a way. And also the whole, I think at the county level and at the government level, the whole healthcare system kind of stinks. Because there was the whole scandal, 5 billion scandal at Afya Center, of course not confirmed either way. The mobile clinics, the stealing of money for maternity healthcare, vaccines, the billions of shillings of equipment that was bought for the counties, and people are not equipped to handle that. People are not trained to handle that equipment. So when you're seeing both sides of government now they're taking the hard stance, what does it portend for our healthcare system? Can it really go anywhere?
In the sense, first of all, let us separate the issues, yeah? The county governments do receive funding for the care that they provide at the county level hospitals, yeah? And their role in this is so minimized that really I don't see what Munya is talking about. Where does he come in? Where did the Council of Governors come in? This issue, especially with the doctors at the national level, it should be dealt with at the national level.
But the time was a devolved function.
Yes, it was devolved, but you didn't devolve the health professionals, and that has always been a sticking point, which is what was part of the CBA agreement and also part of the return to work formula. You mentioned how you have doctors who are running private clinics. Let's remember that these are consultants who are able to go from one hospital to another, and they are able, in fact, if they didn't do it, you'd not be able to access private care in this country. And that's a fact. Moreover, you don't have enough doctors. So when you're having someone like Munya talk about, he doesn't want to talk about it, you don't even have enough doctors in your county hospitals. You don't have enough funding for your county hospitals. What you're fighting the doctors for, you should gang up with the doctors.
Right down at the county,
yes,
right?
You should gang up with the doctors against the national government in order to receive what is rightfully yours, what the national government should be disbursing to the counties. But
so
instead,
I think you need to clarify, Betty, when you say that the professionals were not devolved, then what was devolved to the county level?
They were devolved. I mean, because when the healthcare function was devolved for county hospitals, the former district hospitals, the staffing, operations, equipment, all that funding that was contained for that hospital was given down to the county. So I think in that sense, the money and the function, the money to pay for the salaries and equipment, etc., were given to the county. And now it's up to the county to run that function and to pay the salaries. But the problem is, and this is a financial management issue, is that the counties, one, had no experience and still are having big challenges in managing and budgeting for that money, the money they receive. So they may be, let's say they were spending 100 million on healthcare, they get the money, they budget maybe 70 million. Because they have other things that they're thinking about, not really taking into account what it should have been on hold harmless formula. What was being spent before is what is the minimum where you should go to spend in health in that county. So, but the problem is the county has not been able to budget sufficiently and appropriately to fund this function. And that's why sometimes you're seeing some doctors are not being paid, some equipment is not being paid for, and the money for those services are being used for other things in the county. Now, the other thing is the Ministry of Health also does give conditional grants to the county, for example, for maternal health. But the whole idea of giving a conditional grant is if I give you money, I give you the conditions against how that money should be used. The problem is the counties were not being given those conditions around what that money would be used. So they've been given money for maternal health in a big pool. They use it how they will because they have not been given any conditions. They just know that they are supposed to be providing for maternal health care.
But are we saying there's no capacity at the county level to kind of decide how to spend their money and what is the most important?
They do not have
for the
capacity.
Conditional grants, no. Conditional grants is national funds, and so they must use those monies how the national framework has applied. But in terms of the county can spend, but they must take into account how that money is being spent before. If you cut it, there are repercussions to how the services were being provided previously.
Yeah, but Sharon, let's imagine that you are in a county government. You are the Speaker of the National Assembly or something. You had power at the county level. Just an ordinary citizen on the streets. What would be your priorities in terms of money you've gotten for health? You know it's for maternity care. Would you just decide to spend 20 million of it on wheelbarrows, for example? Isn't it common sense?
And of course, I would want to imagine that different counties have got unique health needs, and so then your priorities would be different and prioritize according to your county needs. For example, if you are in a malaria-prone zone, whatnot, maybe you need those kind of medicines. So I think you would... Wow, that's really loud.
Is it saying that you're wrong, or is it saying that
Super
all right?
Well, okay, sticking with matters health, and it is the end of the road for doctors' pay talks. Governor Munya now says, he states that counties will hire foreign doctors from Africa and beyond to replace medics who fail to resume work. Meanwhile, Lily Koros, the CEO of Kenyatta National Hospital, has given a stern warning to striking doctors, saying that they risk being fired if they don't resume work. In her statement, Koros said that 12 doctors have been dismissed, while 48 are facing disciplinary action. Let's listen in.
The hospital has already determined the services, terminated the services of several medical officers who have been absent from duty on account of desertion in line with the Employment Act 2007, Section 44A, and the hospital terms and conditions of service. All doctors employed by KNH are hereby directed to be on their duty stations with immediate effect.
Tumefika mwisho ya kujaribu kujadiliana na tukaona ni heri tuwe na mpango wa dharura wa kupata madaktari kutoka nchi jirani kama Tanzania na Cuba, tuweze kuwapa kandarasi ya miaka 2, tuendelee nao hiyo kazi mpaka siku ile Wakenya, madaktari wa Kenya wataamuka, wakubali pia wako na jukumu la kuwa wazalendo.
Right, so news just in, Governor Mutua of Machakos County has said that if his doctors don't go back to work tomorrow, that is the end of the road for them, literally. He's going to find other people to take their places and they're going to be fired. But is this... Okay, I know nothing about negotiation, but is this a way to conduct a negotiation when you're talking about a healthcare system for an entire country? Threats, we're going to hire doctors from Cuba. Like you were saying, which doctor from Cuba is coming to Kenya, given that Kenyan doctors are not even paid?
Well, you know what? They keep making these declarations, and yes, you can actually, in fact, it's in the doctors' CBA that you should hire more doctors. Yeah? So, yeah, thanks for implementing the CBA, even if you get them from Cuba, from Tanzania, you're actually doing it. Yeah? But you're not realistic at all. Globally, there's a shortage of healthcare professionals. Globally. So, if you think that, because you know Cuba has 75,000 doctors, Cuba's doctors work on charity basis in developing nations around the world, and one of the areas that they worked in was during the Ebola crisis in Western Africa, okay? You can negotiate as a government with the Cuban government to bring for them to bring, like, you know, a handful, 200 doctors to come and assist in Kenya. But you cannot negotiate for 5,000, okay? That's the first problem that you have. Secondly, Cuba government would first of all ask you why your doctors on strike. So that why am I sending my doctors to conditions that your doctors don't even want to work in? For pay that your doctors don't even want.
Right. Yes, but and actually that defeats the purpose, because even though you're saying that we're bringing in more doctors, actually maybe one doctor from Cuba costs about 5 doctors from Kenya. So how does that even work? You can't say out of one side of your mouth that you can't afford to pay the doctor, and on the other side of your mouth say that you're going to bring in doctors. We're not talking about doctors are coming to Nairobi or Machakos. I mean, they're going deep Isiolo, deep Mandera, where it's one doctor for 20,000, 75,000 people. Those are not conditions under which any foreign doctor is going to come without adequate compensation.
But there's always been the question, what happens then when you feel the doctors are also not negotiating in good faith? What then becomes the next step for the government? Because when you need to pull some strings, then what becomes if you need to turn the heat up, then what are the options of moving forward?
But is making threats a way of solving a problem? Already you've been told several times, and we were told this again today by, good source from the KMPD, that the problem is not even the document anymore. It's simply signing it. And they won't sign it. Why won't they sign it? It's not the doctors who won't sign it, it's government. Why aren't you signing this? Instead of signing it, you start making more threats, you start saying you'll fire people. Where are you hiring doctors from? Tanzania, I can assure you, do not have enough doctors to distribute to Kenya as well. That one, it's a fact.
Well, they could as well ask more than 5 countries. So they could add to the list of countries they're getting doctors from, but Sharon, I believe in
all right, away from matters doctors to matters insecurity. And in a rare incident, an assistant chief in Kamuge, Mr. Wilson Lokuruka, is now attending to patients at a local dispensary after the only nurse fled the banditry-prone region. And this comes after the Deputy President, William Ruto, yesterday told of police officers who advised him against accessing parts of Laikipia and Samburu counties, citing security concerns. Now, the tough-talking Ruto said that this was tantamount to surrendering parts of the country's territory to the control of criminals. Let's listen in.
How can we say that there is a part of Kenya you people cannot go? Mnieleze. Alafu sasa wananchi wanafanya nini hapo? Situwahamishe basi.
It's not viable for other people there.
No.
Because of
there is nowhere a chopper cannot land. Just tell me it is not safe. And if you tell me it's not safe for askaris with guns to land in a place, na tunaambia raia ati wako Kenya.
All right. Your thoughts on the Deputy President's sentiments yesterday when he was talking to, the men in uniform? One would argue that he makes a lot of sense, that if you can't go to this place, then, and you're supposed to protect the civilians, then how do you expect them to do that work?
No, I completely agree with the Deputy President. I feel that it's really... I don't know what the word is. I want to say irresponsible, but maybe incompetence. Or it smells of something like that. To say that you cannot go to a particular region in this country when we have the Army, we have the Air Force, we have even the Navy, we have it. I mean, the strategies which I believe having an army and having a defense force for the many years that we have, they should have strategies. I mean, you start somewhere and then you start widening the ring of safety. I mean, I'm not a security professional, but I imagine that would be one strategy.
Right.
So to tell the Deputy President or anybody why he can't go to a certain place when Kenyans, women and children and toddlers and infants and newborns and men and women are living there. How can you say, well, we can't, I'm an army person, but I can't come and save you because that place is not safe.
But then, of course, they'll be reeling from that experience we saw, was it in 2012 at the Suguta Valley, where a number of, police officers were killed there. And at the end of the day, they are humans. So, I mean, where do you draw the line between protecting yourself and protecting?
What have they learned
I'm no expert in military operations. But
there are very few lessons that this government seems to be learning from the experiences in North Rift region. In 2012, over 100 policemen were killed in Suguta Valley, as you have just stated. And then after that, several more, 50 here, 20 there, there was Kapedo, you had 22 officers, and then Baragoi again. So this is the problem. If you put on a uniform and you go to that area, you are the enemy and they will target you, okay? And that probably is the argument that the officer was giving him, that he as an officer, police officer, cannot go there. But if he's Pokot, if he's Turkana and a toddler, he'll go there and be fine, yeah? But whose fault is this situation? You guys armed these people, okay, where they get the guns? Yeah. You guys armed these people. You are allowing them to run amok, run wild in that area, and then you want to come by later and casually put on a uniform and, hey, obey the law. Which law? What are you talking about?
That's the irony of the entire situation. Because what are the root causes of that particular conflict, or who is fanning the flames? And also, just the other day, was it Baringo, like the shoot-to-kill order, the arming of reservists? So talking again out of both sides of your mouth, saying, how can you tell me it's not safe? Well, we all know it's not safe. To borrow from Donald Trump. Honestly, yeah.
But then here we are with the man who's standing alone in the attending to the villagers there, the policeman who stands nurse now,
right.
Maybe defying the odds or actually standing true to their mandate. I don't know what you'd call
I guess
that.
that's just distilled humanity, because he's in an unsafe place. He knows he's wearing a uniform, he can be targeted, but he's still trying to help. I think that's the attitude that everybody generally should have as citizens.
Right.
But as government, I still believe that they should just sort the situation out. Wangari, don't you think it's time for somebody to say, let me do something about this?
I mean, the time for us to say, let me do something about this, for our defense forces, that time passed a long time ago. Like, lives have been lost. You need to pull up your socks, as my teachers used to say.
You have to remember how our police forces are treated. Even though we're recruiting more and more young people, you're sending people to places that when they have no resources. If you give someone a gun and let's say maybe 15 bullets, and these people are 400, yeah? How many, how long will you last?
All right. So let's just bring in our viewers on our Twitter poll tonight. And we are basing it on the doctor strike, that continuing crisis. And we're asking you, do you support the government's call to employ doctors from abroad? Do you support the government's call to employ doctors from abroad? Do tweet us your thoughts at Julie Masiga, at Sharon_Momanyi, at KTN News. Use the hashtag news sources, and we'll be able to sample your views as we continue with the show. Right now, we take a short break. Don't go too far.